All right, we're live.
Very good.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about improving your credit score, boosting your credit score, ways to avoid mistakes to, I guess, mess up your credit score. And Ken is going to be here to help us out, educate on how to do that for us today.
Good.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Ken. So, let's go back to the beginning. My question is, what is credit score? Why is this thing so important?
Well, generally, it's important when you least want it to be important, and that's when you're either denied a loan for a car or a home or a rental that you're looking at. That's when a lot of people kind of focus on their credit, but credit kind of threads its way through everything in life. Anything to do with money, they generally check your credit. So scores come into play. The short story is you want to have a score that is at least 640 and preferably um, 720, 700, 720. Higher is great, but in those ranges, you can kind of be approved for different types of loans.
What if somebody has like they haven't built up their credit at all? Is home ownership even possible for them?
Well, yeah, these days, with the way the economy is, there's a lot of programs that help people, get into loans. But specifically, generally, you do need some credit you have to have some credit to generate a score. Now, if someone does not have any credit, they can always be added on as an authorized user, which will give them a credit score and a credit profile, fairly quickly. They can look at getting a secured card, which is generally for someone that does not have any open credit. And then after they establish something, then they should look at getting some type of a credit card in their name.
Got it. Okay, so there are ways to get around it if you don't have any credits. If let's say somebody doesn't have any credit score or haven't built it up to an
Yeah,
ideal score.
yeah. There is short-term solutions. Yes.
Yeah, I think this information is really great for people that are looking into home ownership, but their score is just not ideal, and
Hmm.
they're looking for ways to improve it, but they just don't know where to start.
Right.
Yeah, so that goes into my next question: is how can people improve their credit score quickly to qualify for a mortgage?
So, the first thing is establishing a credit profile. And a credit profile actually comes from open positive credit. Now, generally, someone looking to do a home loan has established credit, and that typically is at least one credit card or one student loan or one vehicle, something that has been posted to the credit bureaus. Ideally, a good credit profile consists of 1 to 3 credit cards, and no, you don't have to max them out or use them every day. I can, strategize on how to do that properly. And then as you add different types of things, like if you were to add a student loan, or if you were to add a vehicle payment, or if you were to add a mortgage, these supplement the profile and help elevate the score higher.
Got it. Okay, and so you've talked about all these like startup credit cards or perhaps like a car loan, student loan. Out of all these things, which factors or what factors affect your credit card the most in terms of like payment history, or you said maxing out the credit card? How does it affect your credit score?
Okay, very good. So there is a hierarchy of credit, and naturally, anything with more money is the most impactful. So a student loan is kind of far down there, but a mortgage or a vehicle is the highest beneficial trade line, followed by a credit card.
The higher the money, the more impactful it is to your
Yeah,
credit score.
yeah,
Yeah. So speaking of mortgage, I do sometimes I work most of the time I work with clients and they in the beginning process they need to get pre-approved, and one of their most common questions is that once they start reaching out to lenders and getting their pre-approval, the lenders need to check their credit, and they ask me, how is this
yeah.
going to affect my credit score?
So that's a very good question. Now, two things about that. Number one, there is a little misconception on inquiries as how it relates to mortgage. So there is a little caveat there that you can do as many mortgage inquiries in a 30-day window. And they don't count separately, they count as one. So if you went to five mortgage companies, there would be five showing on your credit report, but the scoring model only factors one. As far as the score impact, if someone had a 700 credit score and they got a mortgage inquiry, it might be about a 5 to 7 point dip. Um, Inquiries stay on the report for up to 2 years, but they only impact your credit score for about 45 days.
Mm. Uh, About 5 to 6 points. Is that a
Yeah,
lot?
yeah.
Is that would that be a
Yeah.
lot?
Is that a lot?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's in retrospect. I mean, if you're trying to do a loan and you need a 640 and an inquiry is going to drop you down to 635, well, that's an issue. So,
Mm.
one thing that my company has access to is we have access to reports that don't generate an inquiry. So if someone is looking to, get their feet in the water and they want an honest assessment of how their credit looks, we can run a report that, again, is called a soft pull. It doesn't generate a mortgage inquiry.
Gotcha. Is that similar to apps like Credit Karma?
It is similar to that. Now, the thing to remember when you're looking at apps like Credit Karma are almost all consumer available scores. They use what's called a Vantage score. And the Vantage score was actually created by the credit bureaus because most of us consumers don't have access to the official FICO. The official FICO is a very complex, less forgiving scoring model. So it's very possible to have a mortgage score of 700 and then pull your less forgiving, less harsh score on Credit Karma and have a 660 or a 670 because they evaluate information differently.
Mm.
And Credit Karma only gives you 2 out of 3 credit bureaus.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that. It doesn't give you all three.
Yeah, but it is a good tool to, again, to at least get a snapshot of your credit. Again, I do have a source that does pull all 3 bureaus, and it does give you the Vantage score, but it gives you accurate information that's reporting to all 3 credit bureaus.
Mhm. A recent question that I received not too long ago actually is that if we have some kind of negative information within our credit history, how long does it remain on our credit report, such as bankruptcies, foreclosures, or any late payments?
Yeah, very good. So Um, all negatives stay on the report for 7 years. Um, that's the law. Actually, if you file bankruptcy, all the items that you include in bankruptcy have a 7-year statute. But the actual filing of the bankruptcy is called a public record, and that basically stays on the credit report for 10 years.
Okay, and that still affects your credit in some way, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, yeah. A late payment, or a bankruptcy filing will probably lower your score by 80 to 100 points. And then time does lessen that impact.
I see. Okay. Um, but so even though you have this history, there's still a chance that you can get it up to, let's say, 650 or 700.
Definitely. Yeah. When we meet with a client, basically we go over the credit report. We give them, two actionable plans. Number one, these are the things you can do to improve your credit. They may be strategies like paying down a credit card balance or paying this, $50 Verizon collection. Also, we are in the business of repairing credit. So if there's things that we can do, we will detail that out to them in
Mm.
a non-pressure setting.
Speaking of paying down balances, I've heard a lot of mortgage officers, lenders that um, they advise their clients that not to pay off their debts right away and to make sure to consult with them first. What is the reason for that?
Well, they may say don't pay collections, but paying credit card balances is always a good thing. I mean, the short rule of thumb is to stay below 30% of the credit limit, ideally lower than that. But the thought process on collections is if you do pay a collection that's over 2 years old, that event, which morally you might feel obligated to do, but paying a 3-year-old collection will actually lower your score. So it's best to get some advice on what to pay, what not to pay.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
What? Why is that? What's the reason for that?
Well, because it has to do with something that the credit formulas really look at called the DLA, date of last activity. And the date of last activity, if it is under 2 years old, that damage and the events of that damage is affecting you pretty harshly. If it's older than 2 years, the impact has lessened. And as it gets to 3 and 4 years, it's really starting to lose any grip on your score. Now, if you were to pay it, you would actually pay it or settle it, and it would update a new date. Now it would say the date of last activity is today. The credit formulas would now look at it and say, oh, you had a bad debt and you did settle it, but you did default and defraud a creditor. So we are nervous about this and we're going to lower your score.
Wow, wow, I see.
Yeah, it's always good to have, actually honest advice. And, when I work with folks like you or mortgage companies, they use me as a resource to communicate with their prospective clients or whoever to come up with the best strategy to improve their credit without hurting it.
That would be very helpful. Yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. So what should be the first step if let's say I'm considering on buying a home and but I have poor credit? What would be the first step for me?
Well, the first step is to know what your credit looks like. I mean, if they come to you, you will probably have a loan officer that you will lead them to. If they're kind of like in just the basic, I want to know if I can get approved stage. I have realtors and loan officers that say, hey, I don't know where you're at right now, but you've indicated that your credit may not be stellar. So I have a trusted resource that can give you a very non-pressure overview of your credit. And, with your permission, I'll refer you to Ken Stray from Scorewell. He'll, review your credit and he'll meet with you. He doesn't charge for the consultation. And once again, he'll strategize with you on how to make sure you're ready, or if you're not, when can you be ready?
Mm. Okay, so I actually have another question that it just popped up in my head. So, how long and how much can you really improve your credit score, and how long is this gonna take?
Yeah. So when I work with the client, we typically work with a client for 6 months. When we're working on damage, we actually interface directly with the credit bureaus. We don't write letters, and we strategically dispute with all three credit bureaus. Now, the earliest we get our first results is 45 days. And in 45 days, because we only work with people that we know we can help, these numbers are pretty accurate. We generally remove 30 to 40% of the damage. And we see anywhere from a 40 to a 60-point score increase. Now, it's generally at least that. Sometimes it can be higher. And again, it comes from a strategy. Well, can you pay this credit card off? Can you pay this one down? This recent collection for $60, can you pay it? So, and then plus with our work, we can forecast what the results will be.
Got it. What about common credit errors to watch out for? What should people watch?
Well, the most important thing to always watch out for is a late payment. So a single late payment can lower your score 80 to 100 points. So number one, you don't want to do that. Number two is you don't want to close existing credit cards. Now, if you had 20 and you closed 5 or 6, that would be fine. But you want your credit cards to season. You want them to age. You want to get them, and keep them for 2, 3, 5, 6+ years. So you don't, excuse me, you don't want to close an existing card unless, you have some advice and good reason to do that. And then you don't want to open up credit cards frivolously. Again, if you have one card and you open up two, ideally 1 to 3 credit cards is pretty suffice for a credit profile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So I have a couple more questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Which one would be better? Pay off your debt or save down for a down payment?
Well, that's up to you and a loan officer. So you can't get qualified for a loan unless you have a credit score. And if you need a 640 credit score or a 660 credit score, and the only way to get that is to pay down credit card balances, well, then you have to do that. But if you have a qualifying credit score and you want to pay down credit, your debt, well, you'd want to talk to your loan officer, because the loan officer will say, you need this much in reserves, for, loan fees or whatever. And plus, if there is debt to pay, they're kind of focusing on what's called DTI, debt to income. So they're looking at how much debt you have, what your monthly obligations are, and what is that percentage. That's why it's really critical in this process to, number one, have a good realtor that is trustworthy, give you honest advice. Number two, have a great loan officer who has your best interests in mind, can offer you multiple programs, and generally, having someone that can give you the right direction on credit. So I call it a trifecta, you, me, and that loan officer. And we work to getting them into that home.
That I can vouch for that. But how often? Okay, so last question for you, Ken. How often should people check their credit report? Or should your
Well, okay, that's a good question as well. They say that you should check it at least once a month. I mean, once a year. I firmly believe in a monitoring program. Again, what you choose to use, sometimes your bank will give you something, sometimes you might have Credit Karma. Again, they only have two of the three bureaus. Again, I have a very good resource. There is a small cost to it, but generally, with a good monitoring program, they will alert you if anything happens to your credit, whether it be negative or someone's inquiring whether there's identity issue. And good ones like the one that I have, they will give you updates once every 30 days. So, I mean, if you're not looking to buy a home, maybe once every 3 or 4 months. But if you're looking to buy a home, especially, or to buy a car, you might want to look at it, starting about 3 months prior to that.
Okay, so a good rule of thumb would be probably once a quarter, right?
Exactly.
Got you. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the live on our Instagram or Facebook? Okay. No. All right. So if anybody have any questions or anybody ask me any questions, how can people find you, Ken?
Well, number one, they can definitely contact you, but the easiest way to contact me is via my website, and
Uh-huh.
it's scorewellinc.com. That's one word, SCOREWELLINC.com. If you go to my website, my contact information's there, a little bit of information about me. You can Google me and see if I'm for real. But that's the easiest, fastest way.
Gotcha. Okay. Scorewellinc.com. SCOREWELL Inc.com.
Yep.
People can reach out to you there. Um, Ken, I really appreciate you joining us
Welcome.
and educating us here today. People are going to have the replay. I'll send people the replay of this, whoever wants it. And if ever they need some credit repair or need tips on boosting their credit score, we know who to go to.
Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Ken. You have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.